In the golden deserts of Sudan, far beyond the borders of Egypt's iconic Giza Plateau, lie hundreds of pyramids that few in the modern world have ever heard of. These are the lost pyramids of Nubia, structures so ancient, so mysterious, that even science struggles to fully explain their existence. The air here hums with forgotten secrets, and the sands conceal stories that time itself seems eager to erase. Who built these monuments, and why were they abandoned to the desert's silence? Unlike the Egyptian pyramids celebrated in every textbook, the Nubian pyramids remain in the shadows, half-buried and overlooked. Yet, some archaeologists whisper that their design holds clues to an even older civilization, perhaps one that predated Egypt itself. Tonight, we journey into the heart of this forgotten world, uncovering the mystery of the pyramids that science cannot explain. Long before the rise of the pharaohs of Egypt, another civilization flourished along the banks of the Nile, one that would later be known as the Kingdom of Kush. Its heartland was Nubia, a region stretching across what is now southern Egypt and northern Sudan. This land, often dismissed as a mere satellite of Egypt, was in fact a center of power, innovation, and mystery. It was here, among golden dunes and black granite cliffs, that a line of kings and queens built pyramids of their own, steeper, smaller, but no less magnificent. These were not imitations, they were statements of identity, power, and faith in a world where gods and rulers were intertwined. The Nubians were a proud people with their own language, religion, and artistry. They controlled the vital trade routes that linked Central Africa to the Mediterranean world, dealing in gold, ivory, incense, and exotic animals. Their wealth and influence grew, and with it, their ambition. The Egyptian pharaohs looked south with both admiration and envy. Over time, their destinies intertwined, sometimes as rivals, sometimes as conquerors. When Egypt weakened during its third intermediate period, it was the Kushites who swept north, conquering Egypt and ruling it as the 25th dynasty. For nearly a century, the Black Pharaohs of Kush reigned from the ancient city of Thebes, uniting the lands of the Nile under one banner once more. But what drove them to build their own pyramids, centuries after Egypt had abandoned the practice? That question still lingers among archaeologists. The official history suggests that Kushite rulers were inspired by the great tombs of the Old Kingdom, but the deeper mystery lies in how they adapted the concept into something distinct, almost otherworldly. The pyramids of Nubia are smaller but far more numerous than those of Egypt. Their steep angles and clustered layouts hint at a lost architectural philosophy, one not meant merely to imitate but to transcend. Over time, the tides of history turned. Assyrian invasions and internal struggles forced the Kushite kings back to their southern homeland. The capital moved from Napata to Meroe, deep in the desert, where they continued to thrive for centuries. Yet, even as their civilization blossomed with writing, trade, and art, the world beyond forgot them. When the Roman Empire reached Egypt, the memory of Kush was already fading into myth. And as centuries passed, shifting sands buried their temples, cities, and pyramids under layers of time. Today, only fragments remain, weathered stones, carved hieroglyphs, and haunting silhouettes against the sunset. They whisper of a civilization that once rivaled Egypt in grandeur and mystery, yet was nearly erased from the pages of history. The question remains, was this neglect a simple accident of time, or was there something about Nubia's secrets that the ancient world wanted to keep hidden? For centuries, the pyramids of Nubia lay buried beneath drifting dunes and the silence of the desert. Travelers passed nearby without realizing they were walking above ancient tombs and forgotten temples. It wasn't until the early 19th century, during the height of European exploration and colonial archaeology, that the world first caught a glimpse of these mysterious structures. When European explorers like Frederick Caliot and Giuseppe Ferlini ventured into what was then known as the Kingdom of Kush's ancient lands, they stumbled upon scenes that defied belief, dozens upon dozens of pyramids, rising from the sands in haunting clusters. Caliot, a French explorer and Egyptologist, was among the first to document them in detail. In his writings, he described rows of steep, narrow pyramids standing like silent sentinels over the desert. Unlike the colossal monuments of Egypt, these were smaller, built at sharper angles, and often grouped close together. Yet despite their differences, their presence hinted at a forgotten civilization that once thrived along the Nile. Kaliod was captivated, believing he had uncovered evidence of a kingdom that had long vanished from history's memory. However, not every explorer treated these monuments with respect. Giuseppe Ferlini, an Italian treasure hunter, approached them with greed rather than curiosity. In 1834, he arrived in Meroe, the heart of ancient Kush, and began a campaign of destruction that horrified later archaeologists. Using explosives, he tore the tops off several pyramids, convinced that treasures lay hidden within. Against all odds, he found gold jewelry, intricate artifacts, and royal relics belonging to Nubian queens. His discovery confirmed that these pyramids were indeed royal tombs, but his methods left many of them permanently scarred. Ferlini sold much of the treasure to European museums, spreading the legend of the Nubian pyramids across the continent, though their true story remained shrouded in misunderstanding. To most Europeans of the 19th century, the idea that sub-Saharan African rulers could have built such monumental architecture was met with disbelief. The prevailing view of the time was steeped in prejudice. Many scholars dismissed the Nubian pyramids as mere copies of Egypt's, ignoring the fact that they were built centuries later in a completely different cultural context. But for those who looked deeper, the ruins whispered of a far more complex history. The kingdom of Kush had been no mere imitator, it had been an empire in its own right, with its own gods, traditions, and innovations. As archaeological expeditions expanded in the 20th century, more pyramids were uncovered, over 200 in total, spread across sites like El Kuru, Nuri, and Meroe. Each site revealed new mysteries, royal tombs filled with amulets, pottery, and carvings, hieroglyphs that blended Egyptian and native Nubian influences, and burial chambers that hinted at a belief system both familiar and alien. Some pyramids were dedicated to powerful queens known as Kandakes, women who ruled in their own right and led armies into battle. Their presence challenged everything the ancient world believed about gender and power. Yet despite these astonishing discoveries, the Nubian pyramids never received the same attention as those of Giza. They were isolated, remote, and overshadowed by Egypt's fame. The desert reclaimed them again and again, covering their stories under layers of sand. To this day, some remain unexplored, sealed chambers that might still contain untouched relics of an age lost to history. The rediscovery of the Nubian pyramids was not just the unearthing of stone structures, it was the reawakening of an entire civilization. But even now, archaeologists and historians agree, there is something about these pyramids that doesn't fit neatly into the timeline of known history. Who truly built them, and what deeper secrets lie hidden within their walls? The answers may rewrite everything we think we know about the ancient world. At first glance, the pyramids of Nubia might seem like the smaller cousins of Egypt's mighty monuments, but a closer look reveals something far more intriguing. Rising sharply from the desert floor, their steep angles cut into the horizon like daggers of stone. Built from sandstone and mud brick, many of these structures stand only 20 to 30 meters high, yet their design carries an elegance and precision that defies their age. Unlike the vast, wide-based Egyptian pyramids that were meant to impress from afar, the Nubian pyramids were slender, compact, and clustered close together, almost like a sacred city for the dead. Each one marked a royal tomb, a bridge between the world of the living and the eternal realm of the gods. What makes these pyramids so mysterious is how they were constructed. Modern engineers and archaeologists still puzzle over the methods used by the Kushites. Without the grand workforce or resources of Egypt, how did they quarry, transport, and align such massive stones in the unforgiving desert heat? Some structures appear perfectly symmetrical, their corners aligned precisely to the cardinal directions. The level of mathematical and astronomical understanding implied by this alignment suggests a civilization deeply attuned to the stars, perhaps even more so than their Egyptian counterparts. Was this knowledge inherited, rediscovered, or something entirely their own? Inside, the differences between Egyptian and Nubian design become even clearer. Egyptian tombs were built with long corridors leading to deep burial chambers hidden beneath the pyramid. Nubian pyramids, by contrast, featured a small chapel at the front, with the burial chamber often located underground, directly beneath the structure. These chapels were adorned with intricate carvings depicting gods, rituals, and the passage to the afterlife. Many feature the image of the ruler receiving offerings, their faces serene and otherworldly, as if already halfway between mortal and divine. One of the most fascinating elements of Nubian architecture is the recurring presence of sacred symbolism that doesn't appear in Egyptian designs. Some pyramids show patterns that resemble astronomical constellations or geometric ratios consistent with later sacred architecture found in distant parts of Africa and even the Middle East. Were the Kushites part of a larger, ancient network of knowledge, one that extended far beyond the Nile Valley? Some researchers believe so, pointing to similarities in stonework techniques and cosmic alignment that seem to defy coincidence. Even more puzzling are the materials used. Many pyramids were constructed with locally sourced sandstone, but traces of granite and basalt, stones found hundreds of miles away, have been detected in certain areas. Transporting such heavy materials without advanced tools or beasts of burden would have been nearly impossible, yet somehow, the builders achieved it. Some scholars speculate that the Kushites had access to forgotten engineering techniques or tools, while others suggest the involvement of foreign artisans or trade links lost to history. The sheer number of pyramids also raises questions. Over 200 have been found in Nubia, more than all the pyramids of Egypt combined. This explosion of construction suggests a society obsessed with the afterlife, but also one that had both the stability and resources to sustain such grand projects. It challenges long-held assumptions about the scale and sophistication of ancient African civilizations. As the sun sets over Meroe, the pyramids glow with a fiery hue, their sharp shadows stretching across the sand like the hands of ancient spirits reaching through time. Each stone seems to hum with an energy that science cannot measure, a quiet defiance of the centuries that have tried to erase them. The more we uncover about their design, the more one truth becomes clear: the pyramids of Nubia were not mere imitations of Egypt's grandeur, they were the expression of a civilization that understood death, the stars, and eternity in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Deep in the deserts of ancient Nubia, beyond the golden sands that once connected kingdoms and empires, the kingdom of Kush emerged as a power that rivaled Egypt itself. Yet, despite its immense influence, Kush remains one of the least understood civilizations in history. Its story is written in fragments, broken inscriptions, buried temples, and the haunting silhouettes of pyramids that stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten past. What kind of people built such wonders? And why did history choose to erase them from memory? The kingdom of Kush first rose to prominence around 1000 BCE, during a time when Egypt's once mighty dynasties had begun to fade. From their capital at Napata, and later at Meroe, the Kushites built a kingdom that would not only preserve Egyptian traditions but transform them into something uniquely their own. They adopted hieroglyphs but developed their own script, known today as Meroitic, one that still resists full translation. This linguistic mystery alone has frustrated historians for decades, as without understanding their written records, much of the Kushite worldview remains sealed away from modern knowledge. The Kushites were not imitators, they were innovators. They built cities, forged iron tools and weapons long before much of the ancient world had mastered the craft, and traded with distant lands far beyond the Nile. Some ancient accounts suggest that Kushite explorers ventured deep into Central Africa and even across the Red Sea, establishing trade networks that brought wealth and power to their desert realm. Their rulers, known as the Black Pharaohs, not only ruled Nubia but conquered Egypt, restoring ancient temples and reviving the worship of gods that Egypt had long abandoned. For nearly a century, they united the Nile Valley under one crown, blending two great cultures into a single legacy. Yet, for all their achievements, the Kushite story is laced with enigma. Their sudden rise, and later disappearance, puzzles archaeologists to this day. How did a civilization that once rivaled Egypt fall so completely into obscurity? Some suggest climate change and shifting trade routes crippled their economy. Others believe internal strife or invasion led to their decline. But there are whispers of deeper, stranger possibilities. rumors of lost knowledge, secret rituals, and forbidden practices that may have drawn the wrath of neighboring empires or even their own gods. One of the most intriguing aspects of Kushite civilization lies in their queens, the Kandakes. These were warrior queens who ruled with absolute authority, commanding armies and shaping diplomacy with iron resolve. Ancient historians wrote of their fierce presence, describing them as terrifying even to the Romans. Their rule defied patriarchal norms of the ancient world, and some believe they held esoteric knowledge tied to the pyramids themselves. Could it be that the secrets of the Nubian pyramids are bound not just to kings, but to these enigmatic queens who wielded both political and spiritual power? As we piece together the scattered remnants of Kush's past, a haunting realization emerges: perhaps the greatest mystery is not how they vanished, but why their story was buried. The sands of Nubia guard their secrets well, and the deeper we dig, the more we sense that the true legacy of the kingdom of Kush was never meant to be easily uncovered. For generations, scholars, explorers, and mystics have debated the true purpose of the Nubian pyramids. While mainstream archaeology insists that they served primarily as royal tombs, this explanation only scratches the surface of a much deeper mystery. The more we study them, the clearer it becomes that these pyramids were not merely burial sites, they were spiritual machines, designed to bridge the gap between worlds. Their precise alignments, hidden chambers, and unusual proportions suggest an advanced understanding of geometry, astronomy, and sacred symbolism that continues to baffle experts to this day. One of the leading theories among archaeologists is that the pyramids of Nubia functioned as elaborate gateways to the afterlife. According to ancient belief, death was not an end but a transformation. The sharp, narrow shape of the pyramids may have been symbolic of ascension, the soul's journey upward toward the realm of the gods. Their orientation toward the rising sun aligns with this concept, representing rebirth and eternal life. However, recent studies have revealed something curious: not all pyramids align with the sun. Some appear to point toward specific stars or constellations, such as Orion or Sirius, both of which held deep spiritual meaning in the ancient Nile cultures. Could the Kushites have encoded celestial knowledge into their architecture, knowledge that modern science has yet to fully decode? Other researchers propose a more esoteric interpretation. They argue that the Nubian pyramids may have served as energy centers, places of resonance and transformation. The geometric precision, combined with their specific ratios, mirrors patterns found in sacred architecture across the world, from Mayan temples to Mesopotamian ziggurats. Some believe that these structures were designed to amplify natural earth energies, creating a space where communication with the divine, or perhaps even with other dimensions, was possible. While such theories remain controversial, they highlight a consistent truth: the Kushites were deeply spiritual people who viewed the cosmos as a living system, not a mechanical one. Another mystery lies within the pyramids' internal structures. Many of them contain false chambers, decoy corridors, and sealed passageways that seem intentionally designed to mislead intruders. Were these security measures meant to protect treasures, or to safeguard something far more profound? Some archaeologists believe that certain pyramids might contain hidden texts or artifacts that could rewrite our understanding of ancient history. Others speculate about initiation chambers, secret spaces used in religious or royal rituals, where kings and queens may have undergone symbolic death and rebirth before ascending to power. A particularly fascinating clue comes from the inscriptions and reliefs found in nearby temples. They often depict the deceased rulers not merely as humans, but as beings merging with divine forces, embodying gods like Ammonius, Isis, and Osiris. This imagery suggests that the pyramids were designed to facilitate a process of spiritual transformation, turning mortal rulers into immortal entities. In that sense, each pyramid was not just a tomb but a metaphysical engine, a place where man sought to become God. Yet, one question continues to haunt every researcher who studies these monuments: why build so many? Over 200 pyramids were constructed across Nubia, far more than in Egypt, despite the region's smaller population. Such large-scale construction suggests a cultural obsession, a collective drive toward something greater than mere tradition. Could it be that the Nubians believed the balance of life and death depended on maintaining a sacred grid of energy across the desert? Some even theorize that the placement of these pyramids forms a geometric map when viewed from above, a hidden code that connects earth and sky. The truth, for now, remains elusive. Science offers measurements and data, but the deeper meaning, the soul of the pyramids, still lies beyond reach. Perhaps that's the true genius of the Kushites. They built monuments not only of stone, but of mystery, ensuring that even millennia later, their secrets would continue to challenge and inspire the minds of those who dare to ask what the ancients truly knew. Every ancient civilization seems to guard its secrets with whispers of a curse, and the kingdom of Kush is no exception. Among the shifting dunes of Sudan, locals still tell stories of strange misfortunes that befall those who dare to disturb the pyramids of Nubia. It is said that the spirits of ancient kings and queens, the Kandakes and pharaohs of the south, still watch over their resting places, punishing any who trespass. To some, these tales are mere folklore meant to protect sacred sites. But to others, they hint at something far darker, a warning from history itself. When Giuseppe Ferlini began blasting apart pyramids in the 1830s in search of gold, the locals pleaded with him to stop. They warned him of the Black Wind, a curse said to follow anyone who desecrated the tombs of the dead. Ferlini laughed off the warnings, until, upon his return to Europe, tragedy followed. His health declined rapidly, his fortune vanished, and he died penniless and forgotten. Though skeptics dismiss his downfall as coincidence, believers claim it was the vengeance of the Nubian dead. Similar fates befell other explorers who looted burial chambers in the decades that followed: accidents, sudden illness, inexplicable disappearances, all feeding into the legend of the curse. Even modern archaeologists have not been spared eerie experiences. Teams working near Meroe have reported malfunctioning equipment, lost photographs, and sudden sandstorms that seem to rise from nowhere. Some have described hearing faint chanting or the sound of footsteps echoing among the ruins at night when no one else was there. Rational explanations exist: desert winds, shifting dunes, the tricks of the human mind, but the sense of being watched never quite leaves those who enter these ancient necropolises. For the Nubians, death was not the end. Their rituals were designed to ensure that the spirit, known as the Ka, could roam freely between worlds. The pyramids were built as vessels for that spirit, connecting the living and the divine. To disturb them was to break a sacred covenant. Whether the curse is real or not, its message is unmistakable: the past demands respect. The more mankind digs into the forgotten sands of Nubia, the more it seems the ancient world is whispering, some secrets are not meant to be uncovered. Beneath the blazing sands of Nubia lies a world that has yet to be fully revealed. Archaeologists believe that under many of the pyramids of Meroe and Napata, there may be undiscovered chambers, sealed passages, and perhaps entire subterranean complexes that have never seen the light of day. Over the years, fragments of jewelry, sacred relics, and royal insignias have been unearthed, each piece offering a glimpse into the grandeur of the Kushite kingdom. Yet, these discoveries may only scratch the surface, literally. For every tomb opened, dozens more remain buried under layers of shifting dunes, untouched for over 2,000 years. What lies beneath could alter our understanding of ancient history forever. During early excavations in the 20th century, researchers noticed something peculiar. Some burial sites appeared deliberately sealed off with thick layers of stone, as if the builders wanted to keep whatever was inside hidden, not just from thieves, but from the world itself. Unlike the Egyptian tombs filled with painted walls and hieroglyphic texts, many Nubian burial chambers are stark and silent, their emptiness unnerving. Some scholars believe this was intentional, that the most sacred items or texts were removed and concealed in hidden vaults before the civilization's decline. Others argue that the treasures were buried deeper still, in tunnels that extend beyond the visible structures, perhaps linking multiple pyramids together in an underground network. Modern technology has begun to peel back the mystery. Using ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery, researchers have detected anomalies beneath several pyramid sites, strange geometric shapes and cavities that do not correspond with known tomb layouts. These findings have sparked a new wave of speculation. Could there be a lost royal crypt still waiting to be discovered, or even a hidden archive of Kushite knowledge preserved beneath the desert? Some even believe that a burial labyrinth exists below Meroe, echoing ancient legends that describe kings being buried in chambers filled with gold, maps of the heavens, and objects of unknown purpose. Yet, exploration is slow and fraught with danger. The desert is harsh and unpredictable, and many areas are still inaccessible due to political instability and environmental challenges. Each excavation risks damaging fragile structures that have survived millennia. Some archaeologists have suggested that it may be better to leave certain pyramids undisturbed, fearing that the act of opening them could destroy whatever secrets they hold, or unleash something best left forgotten. Still, the allure of what lies beneath is irresistible. Every unearthed artifact deepens the enigma rather than solves it. A golden necklace found near Meroe bears inscriptions in a language still undeciphered. Fragments of metallic objects that do not match known Kushite metallurgy have been quietly documented and locked away in museum archives. Some believe these could be remnants of technologies, or rituals, long lost to human history. Standing in the shadow of these pyramids, one cannot help but wonder, what if the greatest treasures of Nubia were never meant to be material at all? Perhaps the real secret buried beneath the sands is not gold or jewels, but knowledge, a message from an ancient civilization to the future, waiting patiently for the right moment, and the right mind, to uncover it. In the last few decades, a quiet revolution has begun in the deserts of Sudan. Modern archaeologists, armed with advanced technology and a renewed sense of curiosity, have returned to the ancient lands of Nubia to uncover what the sands have long concealed. Unlike the treasure hunters of the past, today's explorers come not for gold, but for truth, to piece together the fragmented story of the kingdom of Kush and its mysterious pyramids. Yet, even in an age of satellites, drones, and laser scanning, the Nubian pyramids continue to guard their secrets with an almost supernatural stubbornness. One of the most significant breakthroughs came in the early 2000s, when satellite imagery revealed dozens of previously unknown pyramid-like mounds scattered across the region. What was once thought to be a handful of isolated royal cemeteries turned out to be part of a far larger and more complex network of burial sites stretching for hundreds of miles along the Nile. These findings challenged long-held assumptions about the scope of Kushite civilization, suggesting that it was not a peripheral culture, but a sprawling empire with multiple centers of power. Even more astonishing were the radar scans that hinted at structures buried beneath the dunes, their outlines faint but unmistakably geometric. At sites like Nuri and El Kuru, archaeologists have begun using non-invasive methods to map underground chambers without disturbing them. In 2020, a joint team of Sudanese and American researchers discovered what appeared to be a submerged tomb beneath one of the largest pyramids at Nuri, possibly belonging to a Kushite king. The team used robotic submarines to explore flooded passageways, capturing haunting images of carved stone walls and inscriptions never before seen by human eyes. The discovery raised new questions. Why were these chambers intentionally flooded? Was it a burial ritual meant to symbolize rebirth through water, or a deliberate act to protect something hidden below? However, these new discoveries come with daunting challenges. Sudan's political instability and limited funding have made long-term excavation difficult. Many pyramid sites remain under threat from erosion, looting, and neglect. Shifting desert sands continue to swallow entire structures, while climate change accelerates their decay. Some researchers fear that within the next century, portions of Meroe's necropolis may vanish entirely if preservation efforts do not intensify. Despite these obstacles, hope persists. International collaborations have brought fresh energy to the field. Digital 3D modeling now allows scientists to recreate pyramid interiors virtually, preserving details that may soon be lost. Drones provide aerial maps that reveal subtle patterns invisible from the ground, ancient roads, buried walls, and even the outlines of temples that once stood nearby. Every new scan adds another piece to the grand puzzle of Nubia, slowly restoring a civilization long denied its place in history. Yet, for every question answered, new mysteries emerge. Some anomalies detected beneath pyramid sites defy explanation: metallic readings where no known artifacts should exist, or voids that seem to lead nowhere. In one recent case, excavators uncovered fragments of a black, glass-like material that did not match any known local mineral. Tests suggested it had been exposed to extreme heat, leading some to speculate that the Kushites may have possessed advanced smelting or ritual technologies now lost to time. There is also the lingering issue of secrecy. Not all discoveries are made public. Certain findings have been quietly classified or withheld, fueling rumors among locals and fringe theorists alike. Some whisper that deep beneath the sands of Nubia lies evidence of contact with older civilizations, or perhaps even with something not entirely human. While mainstream science dismisses these claims, the pyramid's silence leaves room for speculation. As the sun sets over the Meroitic plains, the excavation sites glow in shades of amber and red, mirroring the colors of ancient fire rituals. As the modern world races forward with technology and discovery, the Nubian pyramids stand as ancient sentinels, unchanging, unyielding, and deeply enigmatic. Despite decades of research and excavation, the heart of their mystery remains untouched. Beneath the windswept dunes of Sudan, thousands of years of history are still buried, mute but watchful. It's as if the desert itself has chosen to guard the final secret of the kingdom of Kush, refusing to surrender the last chapter of its story. And that resistance, silent yet powerful, has turned the pyramids of Nubia into one of the most haunting enigmas of human civilization. What makes these monuments so different from their Egyptian counterparts is not just their number or size, but their aura. There is an inexplicable energy that researchers, travelers, and locals alike have reported, an overwhelming sense of presence, as though the air around these ancient stones vibrates with unseen memory. Some describe it as reverence, others as fear. Perhaps it's the lingering echo of a civilization that once rivaled Egypt's greatness yet was nearly erased from history. Or perhaps it's something deeper, a force deliberately encoded within the very architecture, designed to endure long after the last priest vanished into dust. Archaeologists continue to debate the true purpose of these structures. Were they merely royal tombs, or were they instruments of something greater, cosmic alignment, spiritual gateways, or repositories of knowledge meant for a future age? Some hieroglyphs suggest that the Kushite kings believed their souls would travel beyond the stars, guided by celestial markers etched into the heavens. The alignment of several pyramids toward specific constellations, Orion, Sirius, and Canopus, hints at astronomical precision far beyond what scholars expected from that era. Could these structures be part of a greater map, one that connects Earth to the cosmos? But beyond scholarly debate lies a darker whisper, a possibility that unsettles even the most rational minds. Ancient Nubian legends speak of the ones who descended, luminous beings who taught the first kings the secrets of stone and fire. These tales, long dismissed as myth, bear uncanny similarities to stories from distant lands, Sumer, Mesoamerica, and Egypt, all describing gods descending from the stars to guide humanity. Could the pyramids of Nubia be more than just tombs? Could they be markers of an encounter, a remembrance of a forgotten epoch when human and something other coexisted? Modern science rejects such notions, insisting on empirical evidence. Yet even scientists admit there are anomalies they cannot fully explain: radiocarbon dates that don't align, materials that appear far too advanced, and magnetic readings that fluctuate inexplicably around certain pyramid clusters. One geologist reported detecting faint energy emissions from beneath a collapsed structure near Gebel Barkal, measurable but unidentifiable. When questioned, he described the sensation as standing above something, alive but buried. Officially, the data remains inconclusive. Unofficially, it's been quietly archived. Long before Patagonia was mapped or claimed by any empire, its vast wilderness was already woven with stories, tales passed from one generation to the next about colossal beings who once roamed its desolate plains. When the first European explorers arrived, they expected emptiness. What they found instead were whispers of giants. In 1520, Ferdinand Magellan's crew recorded an encounter that would haunt history. They claimed to have seen a man of enormous stature on the shores of San Julian. Antonio Pigafetta, the expedition's chronicler, wrote that the figure was so tall that our heads barely reached his waist. The sailors even tried to capture one, offering gifts in an attempt to lure him closer. To them, it was as if myth had stepped into reality. As centuries passed, these stories multiplied. In the 1700s, British and Spanish expeditions echoed similar reports: tribes of towering people, footprints embedded deep in riverbanks, and skeletal remains suggesting a race of giants. Charles Darwin, during his voyage on the Beagle, noted how persistent these local legends were. He dismissed them as exaggerations, yet even his writings hinted at uncertainty. Could entire cultures have fabricated the same myth? Or were these explorers glimpsing something the modern world has conveniently forgotten? Indigenous groups like the Tehuelche told their own stories, long before Europeans ever arrived. Their oral histories spoke of beings called Patagones, massive figures who shaped mountains, battled monstrous creatures, and vanished into the mist when balance was broken. To the native tribes, these giants were both protectors and warnings, reminders of powers that existed before humans claimed dominion over the earth. Over time, the myth of the Patagonian giants became tangled between truth and fantasy. Artists in Europe painted them as monstrous figures towering over ships. Maps from the 16th and 17th centuries even labeled parts of Patagonia as Land of the Giants. Yet, despite skepticism, the consistency of these accounts remained striking. Different explorers, separated by oceans and decades, all spoke of the same impossible sight, figures far larger than any known human race. Were these early witnesses deceived by optical illusion, or were they documenting encounters that modern science has chosen to erase? Each account blurs the boundary between record and legend, leaving behind a mystery that refuses to die. The deeper one looks into these stories, the more it seems that Patagonia's wilderness still holds secrets too large to fit within the limits of accepted history. The first whispers of the giants came not just from explorers, but from the very earth itself. Across Patagonia's vast and untamed landscapes, ancient relics began to surface, strange, oversized bones and artifacts that defied explanation. In the late 1800s, an expedition in the southern part of the continent uncovered skeletal remains that challenged conventional understanding. These bones, larger than anything previously known in human history, were found scattered across an area near the Rio Grande, a river that cuts through the heart of Patagonia. The size of the femurs, skulls, and jawbones suggested that these beings were unlike any humans or animals known to modern science. Some of the bones were said to be twice the size of average human bones, leaving archaeologists stunned. Yet, these extraordinary finds didn't come with any clear answers, and as time passed, many of the bones mysteriously disappeared or were destroyed. In the early 20th century, further discoveries were made that would reignite interest in the myth of the giants. In 1920, a pair of explorers from Buenos Aires stumbled upon a collection of giant stone tools near the Andean foothills. These tools, shaped with remarkable precision, were far too large for the average human to have used, yet no other creature was known to have had such intelligence. The size and craftsmanship suggested a highly advanced, unknown culture that had once thrived in this remote region. The explorers documented their findings, including photographs of the tools alongside the remains of what appeared to be giant structures, faint remnants of walls and long-forgotten pathways. However, when these documents were brought to international archaeologists, they were met with skepticism. Despite the compelling evidence, many experts dismissed the possibility of a lost race of giants. Some theorized the tools were merely exaggerated artifacts, while others claimed they were the work of larger, but still human, cultures. Yet, the most bizarre discoveries came from Patagonia's extreme northern regions. In the mid-1900s, a group of Argentine researchers unearthed what seemed to be a massive set of footprints embedded in the solid rock. These prints, thought to be millions of years old, were unlike any human tracks ever found. They were gigantic, over 3 feet in length, leading some to suggest that they had been created by a race of giant humans or even unknown creatures. Further studies revealed strange anomalies in the rock layers, as if these footprints had been preserved in an inexplicable way. Scientists tried to explain them as a natural phenomenon, erosion, ancient volcanic activity, or even the result of animal tracks, but nothing could fully account for their size or shape. What's even stranger is that these footprints were found alongside human artifacts, tools, pottery, and even remnants of human settlements. How could such ancient evidence be found in the same layers as modern human artifacts, unless an advanced civilization once existed here? Despite these findings, mainstream science remained firm in its stance: giants were a myth. The remains, tools, and footprints were written off as anomalies, either misidentifications or fabricated stories. However, local researchers, who had long believed in the existence of the giants, continued to dig deeper, uncovering more mysterious finds that kept the fire of intrigue alive. The most recent developments have only added to the enigma. In the 1990s, researchers using advanced technology like ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR scans found strange structures buried beneath the Earth's surface, hidden within dense forests and rocky outcrops. These scans revealed what appeared to be underground cities, roads, and even structures too large to be built by any known human civilization. The designs were unlike anything seen before, with proportions far beyond the scale of normal human construction. Could these be the remnants of a forgotten race of giants, their civilizations wiped out by time, natural disasters, or unknown forces? As each new discovery emerges, the line between myth and reality becomes ever more blurred. The more we uncover, the more questions arise, leaving Patagonia's hidden giants a tantalizing mystery that refuses to be solved. The land itself seems to hold the answers, but its secrets are buried deep, waiting for the right combination of curiosity and technology to bring them to light. Despite the mounting evidence from explorers, archaeologists, and local reports, mainstream science has consistently rejected the idea that giants ever walked the land of Patagonia. The discoveries, no matter how compelling, are often dismissed as either hoaxes, misinterpretations, or the result of natural phenomena. Scholars argue that the oversized bones and strange artifacts could be explained away by a range of possible scenarios: the remains of prehistoric megafauna, misidentified fossils, or the exaggerated accounts of travelers who mistook the size of their surroundings or the people they encountered. In the case of the footprints, some suggest they might simply be the result of unusual erosion or fossilization of other creatures' tracks. One of the primary reasons why science struggles to accept the theory of giants is the lack of concrete evidence: a fossilized skeleton, a verified DNA sample, or irrefutable remains that can be linked to an ancient human species. Despite numerous attempts to uncover the full extent of these findings, no expedition has been able to present definitive, scientifically accepted proof of a giant civilization. The bones that have been discovered are often incomplete or scattered, making it impossible to conduct thorough genetic studies. Some researchers argue that what we're seeing is simply an isolated group of exceptionally tall individuals, not an entire race of giants, and that the accounts of explorers have been blown out of proportion or exaggerated through generations of retelling. Moreover, the bones that were once examined, like the femurs and skulls discovered in the early 20th century, were often removed from their context and destroyed or lost, making further research impossible. Some researchers suggest that these relics may have been discarded because they were simply too extraordinary to be taken seriously. With no physical evidence to conclusively prove the existence of giants, many in the scientific community have written off these findings as mere artifacts of folklore, blending fact with myth. Darwin himself, when he visited the region in the 1830s, reported seeing native groups who were tall but not beyond the range of normal human height. While he acknowledged the strange accounts from earlier explorers, he attributed them to the myths of indigenous people and the tendency of early explorers to exaggerate. He also pointed out that the harsh conditions of Patagonia could have contributed to the perceived size of the indigenous groups due to their adaptation to the environment. The scientific community continues to fall back on the theory of missing links to explain the origins of human evolution, dismissing any theories that don't conform to the established narrative. This view is rooted in the dominant understanding of human history that spans millions of years, with Homo sapiens emerging as the dominant species roughly 200,000 years ago. If a race of giants had existed in Patagonia, it would radically alter our understanding of human history, and many scholars are hesitant to embrace such a paradigm shift without irrefutable proof. The theory of giants is simply too extraordinary for most researchers to consider, given the evidence at hand. Yet, this skepticism fails to explain the persistence of the giant legend across centuries. If the reports are mere fabrications, why did so many independent explorers, spanning continents and cultures, write about them with such consistency? Why do the stories of giants persist in local folklore and in the records of sailors, naturalists, and adventurers, despite the glaring absence of concrete evidence? These questions continue to haunt the scientific community, making the debate between myth and reality all the more fascinating. The mystery of Patagonia's giant stands as a testament to the limits of our understanding. While scientists may dismiss these tales, the enigmatic finds scattered across the region suggest that some truths lie beyond the reach of conventional science. As technology advances, perhaps new tools will be able to dig deeper into Patagonia's ancient secrets, offering a clearer view of the giants that once, or perhaps still, roamed its mysterious terrain. Until then, the question remains, are these the product of myth, or is there something more, something science can't yet explain? Long before European ships touched the shores of South America, the native peoples of Patagonia already carried stories of beings far greater than humans. To them, these giants were not myths, but memories, living fragments of their ancestral past. The Tehuelche, Selknam, and Mapuche tribes spoke of towering figures known by many names, Patagons, Kenas, or the Hachai. These colossal beings were said to have walked the earth in ancient times, shaping the mountains, carving valleys, and battling the forces of nature. They were not gods, yet they were not entirely mortal either, something in between, beings of immense strength and mysterious purpose. According to Tehuelche oral traditions, the giants were the first inhabitants of the southern lands. Their bodies were so immense that they left deep imprints in the ground, footprints that, according to legend, could still be seen after centuries. These giants were believed to be protectors of the earth, maintaining balance between humans and nature. But over time, their power became too great. The stories tell of a great storm, a celestial punishment sent by the spirits, that wiped them from existence, leaving behind only their shadows in stone and soil. The people of Patagonia grew to fear certain valleys and mountains, believing the spirits of the giants still roamed there, watching silently from behind the wind. The Selknam people, who lived farther south in Tierra del Fuego, carried similar legends. They spoke of beings with immense strength who could uproot trees and move boulders with ease. Their mythology described these giants as both creators and destroyers, figures who helped shape the landscape but also brought chaos when angered. The elders warned that disturbing their resting places would bring misfortune, a belief that still lingers among some descendants today. Rituals were often performed before entering certain sacred lands, offerings made to appease the ancient ones whose bones might still lie buried beneath the surface. Modern anthropologists often interpret these tales as metaphors, symbolic expressions of natural forces, personified through storytelling. Yet, even these interpretations fail to explain how multiple tribes, separated by vast distances and lacking written contact, all shared the same descriptions of giant beings. Their oral histories align too closely to be mere coincidence: enormous footprints, large skeletal remains, and forbidden valleys said to hold the bones of the old ones. Some modern indigenous elders insist these were not myths at all, but historical truths erased by time and disbelief. They speak of ancestral warnings, that long before the arrival of the Europeans, their people lived alongside another race, one that vanished mysteriously, perhaps driven to extinction by the very elements they once ruled. Their spirits, they say, remain bound to the land, their presence still felt in the winds and the mountains that dominate Patagonia's lonely horizon. While science dismisses these tales as folklore, to the indigenous people of Patagonia, the giants are a part of their identity, their history, and their land. These stories are not meant to be proven, only remembered. For them, the giant's existence is not a question of evidence, but of respect, memory, and truth whispered through the endless winds of the southern world. As the 19th century unfolded, the legends of Patagonia's giants continue to lure explorers, adventurers, and scientists to the southernmost reaches of the world. Driven by curiosity, greed, or the promise of discovery, many set out to uncover the truth behind the rumors. What they found, at least according to their journals, was far stranger than anything they had imagined. These expeditions, some officially recorded and others lost to time, would add layers of mystery to a tale already thick with contradiction. One of the earliest and most famous accounts came from the 1520 expedition of Ferdinand Magellan. His chronicler, Antonio Pigafetta, described encounters with natives who stood taller than any man of Europe. When Magellan's crew tried to measure one, the giant laughed, unbothered by their awe. The sailors traded with these towering people, offering mirrors and bells in exchange for food. Pigafetta's record was later mocked by skeptics, yet his meticulous descriptions matched later accounts almost too perfectly to be coincidence. Centuries later, in 1766, Captain John Byron, grandfather of the poet Lord Byron, led an expedition through Patagonia. His crew, too, reported meeting men of extraordinary size. Byron wrote that the giants were peaceful and curious, their voices deep and booming, their footprints enormous in the sand. The British press sensationalized his report, publishing exaggerated illustrations of monstrous beings towering over frightened sailors. But Byron's own logbook, preserved in archives, is more measured, curious, respectful, and entirely sincere. He did not claim they were mythical creatures, only that they were far taller than any humans he had ever seen. By the 19th century, explorers from across Europe arrived in search of physical evidence. French naturalists, Spanish missionaries, and Argentine geologists each brought back strange reports. In 1832, during his voyage on the Beagle, Charles Darwin himself heard repeated accounts of giant tribes from both locals and older explorers. Though he never encountered them personally, Darwin noted in his journal that these stories were so consistent and so often repeated as to warrant deeper inquiry. Yet, like many scientists of his time, he remained skeptical, chalking it up to exaggeration or misinterpretation. In the early 1900s, a German expedition led by Carl von den Steinen reported finding enormous footprints and tools carved from stone. His team measured the prints, each nearly a meter long, and found them embedded in ancient rock. They also discovered what they described as primitive dwellings, large enough to house beings twice the size of an average human. Strangely, many of their notes and photographs vanished during shipment back to Europe, fueling conspiracy theories that someone wanted the evidence suppressed. Even in the modern age, sightings and strange discoveries continue. In the 1970s, Argentine farmers reported finding massive skeletons near Lake Buenos Aires, only for the remains to vanish after officials took them for study. More recently, in 2001, hikers discovered unusual footprints near the Chilean border, perfectly formed and abnormally large, deep enough to suggest immense weight. Local authorities dismissed them as animal tracks distorted by melting snow, but eyewitnesses swore they had seen something human. Each of these encounters, spanning centuries, nations, and cultures, shares uncanny similarities, immense size, remote settings, and a haunting sense that these giants were both real and deliberately hidden from history. Whether the result of myth, deception, or truth buried under time, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Every expedition that ventured into Patagonia returned with more questions than answers, as if the land itself was protecting its secrets. The deeper they searched, the more elusive the giants became, appearing like ghosts, only to vanish when science tried to pin them down. The mystery of Patagonia's hidden giants has inspired a multitude of theories, some grounded in anthropology and genetics, others stretching deep into the realms of mythology and forbidden history. At the heart of these debates lies one haunting question: if the giants were real, who, or what, were they? The first and most conservative theory proposed by scientists is that the reports of giants stemmed from exaggerated encounters with unusually tall native tribes, particularly the Tehuelche. Some anthropologists argue that the early explorers, already primed by European myths of monstrous races, were astonished by the Tehuelche's height and strength, often standing a head taller than the average European of that era. Over time, these stories grew in the telling, transformed by rumor into encounters with beings twice their size. However, this explanation fails to account for the more dramatic evidence, oversized bones, tools, and footprints, that defy any simple biological variation. Another theory suggests a case of misidentification. Skeptics argue that some of the giant bones found in Patagonia may have belonged to prehistoric megafauna, such as the Megatherium, an enormous ground sloth that once roamed South America. The skulls and femurs of these creatures, they claim, could easily be mistaken for those of humans if found fragmented or weathered by time. But this explanation, too, feels incomplete. Many accounts describe intact skeletons with distinctly human features, not the skeletal structures of animals. Moreover, reports of stone tools and human-like artifacts found alongside the remains make it difficult to dismiss them as simple paleontological confusion. Beyond science, more controversial theories propose that the giants of Patagonia might have been a remnant population of an ancient, advanced civilization, perhaps survivors of a forgotten era predating recorded history. Fringe historians and alternative researchers often link Patagonia's mysteries to the Nephilim of biblical lore or to ancient texts describing hybrid beings, offspring of divine or otherworldly entities and humans. These theories claim that the giants were real, powerful beings whose existence was deliberately erased by later civilizations or suppressed by modern institutions seeking to preserve the current narrative of human origins. Supporters point to the recurring presence of giant legends across cultures, from the Titans of Greece to the Anakim of Canaan and the giants of Norse mythology, as evidence of a shared memory too consistent to be coincidence. Another fascinating perspective arises from the field of genetic anomaly. Some scientists, less skeptical than others, have speculated that rare genetic conditions might have once produced isolated communities of extraordinarily tall humans. Over time, these traits could have faded from the gene pool, leaving only traces in oral traditions and ancient bones. However, for such genetic anomalies to persist across an entire tribe or population, there would need to be a stable lineage, something that mainstream anthropology has never been able to document in Patagonia. Perhaps the most controversial theory is that the evidence of giants has been intentionally hidden. Conspiracy researchers argue that institutions like museums and universities have suppressed findings that don't fit established timelines of human evolution. They point to stories of bones disappearing from archives and expeditions that ended abruptly after reporting their discoveries. While such claims lack solid proof, the pattern of lost evidence is enough to keep the suspicion alive. Could it be that our understanding of human history is incomplete by design? In the end, the theories reveal more about human nature than about the giants themselves. Our need to explain the unexplainable, whether through faith, science, or imagination, drives us to fill the gaps in history with meaning. Were the giants of Patagonia ancient humans, evolutionary offshoots, or something entirely different? The truth remains elusive, trapped between myth and evidence. Yet, every explanation, from scientific to supernatural, only deepens the fascination. Perhaps the real mystery is not whether the giants existed, but why the world seems so determined to forget them. In recent decades, advances in technology have allowed researchers to peer beneath Patagonia's surface in ways that early explorers could never have imagined. Using tools like ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR scanning, and DNA sequencing, modern scientists have sought to uncover the truth behind the persistent legends of the giants. While no definitive proof has yet emerged, what has been found continues to challenge conventional understanding, and raise unsettling new questions. In 1998, a research team from the National University of La Plata conducted one of the first large-scale archaeological scans of the Patagonian plains. Their radar readings revealed a network of subterranean structures buried deep beneath the soil, vast, symmetrical formations stretching for hundreds of meters. The shapes resembled ancient dwellings or tunnels, yet their proportions were far larger than any human-made structures known from that period. Some passages measured over 4 meters in height, too high for ordinary human use. When samples were analyzed, the surrounding soil dated back thousands of years earlier than any known settlement in the region. Despite this, the findings were quietly archived and never fully published. The official explanation cited geological anomalies, but many suspected something more was being concealed. In 2007, a private expedition equipped with LiDAR mapping drones explored a remote valley near the Chilean border. To their astonishment, they detected what appeared to be an enormous humanoid figure carved into the side of a cliff, eroded by time yet unmistakably deliberate. Local guides insisted it represented one of the ancient protectors, a figure revered in indigenous legend. When the team attempted to revisit the site the following year, landslides had completely buried the formation, erasing nearly all trace of it. The coincidence only deepened the air of mystery surrounding the find. Modern DNA analysis has also produced intriguing anomalies. In several museums across Argentina and Chile, preserved bones once thought to belong to extinct megafauna have yielded partial sequences of human-like DNA, though heavily degraded and fragmented. Some samples show genetic markers inconsistent with any known indigenous population. Researchers have attributed these discrepancies to contamination or sequencing errors, yet the patterns persist across multiple finds. If authentic, they could suggest the existence of a distinct, now extinct human species, one larger and genetically unique. Satellite imagery has also revealed strange circular depressions and geometric alignments across the Patagonian steppe, visible only from above. Some researchers believe these may be remnants of colossal foundations or ceremonial platforms, while others dismiss them as natural formations shaped by wind and erosion. The debate continues, but each discovery feeds the same haunting question: are these natural oddities, or the faint fingerprints of a forgotten civilization? Despite the potential of modern science, the search for the giants remains mired in uncertainty. Funding is scarce, skepticism runs deep, and much of Patagonia's terrain is too remote for thorough study. Yet the technology keeps improving, and with every new scan and every fresh anomaly, the boundary between myth and evidence blurs further. For now, science offers no answers, only deeper mysteries hidden beneath the cold Patagonian soil, waiting for the day someone finally uncovers the truth. The legend of Patagonia's giants has done more than stir scientific debate, it has shaped the identity, psychology, and cultural fabric of the entire region. For centuries, these stories have lingered like echoes in the wind, influencing art, folklore, and even the way people view their own connection to the land. To the people of Patagonia, the giants are not just figures from ancient myths, they are part of a living heritage, woven into the soul of the landscape itself. Local communities still tell tales of the Patagons around fires under the endless southern sky. Parents recount stories to their children of the great beings who walked the plains, warning them to respect nature and never wander too far from home. These myths are not meant to frighten but to remind, a way to keep alive the reverence for forces greater than humankind. Anthropologists studying these traditions have noted how the giant myth serves a deeper psychological function: it gives meaning to the vast emptiness of Patagonia. In a land so immense and untamed, imagining that powerful beings once ruled it brings a sense of continuity, a bridge between the human world and the primal forces that still dominate the landscape. Culturally, the idea of the giants has found expression in countless forms. Artists paint massive figures emerging from the mist, while poets describe the mountains themselves as sleeping giants turned to stone. In recent years, the legend has re-emerged through tourism and popular media. Travelers from across the world visit the region, drawn by the mystery of the Land of Giants. Local museums, folklore festivals, and guided tours now celebrate this ancient mythology, blending myth with history in ways that captivate both believers and skeptics alike. Psychologically, the persistence of the legend reveals something profound about human nature. The image of giants resonates deeply with universal archetypes, the desire to believe in something larger than ourselves, to imagine that our world was once inhabited by beings beyond comprehension. It reflects humanity's fascination with power, mystery, and the unknown. In an age ruled by data and rationality, the story of Patagonia's giant stands as a quiet rebellion, a reminder that not everything can be measured, categorized, or explained. Even as modern science continues to search for tangible proof, the true power of this legend lies in its endurance. The giants may have vanished from the earth, but they remain alive in the imagination, towering not in flesh and bone, but in the collective memory of those who still look upon Patagonia's endless horizon and wonder what once walked there. As the winds sweep across the desolate plains of Patagonia, the mystery of the giants remains suspended between history and myth, neither proven nor disproven, but eternally alive in the imagination of all who seek the unknown. Science offers explanations grounded in fossils, misinterpretations, and folklore evolution, yet none seem to fully erase the feeling that something extraordinary once stirred here. The accounts of explorers, the artifacts found in forgotten caves, and the whispers passed down through generations all point toward a deeper story, one that refuses to fade into the dust of time. In many ways, the giants of Patagonia symbolize the frontier between what we know and what we can only sense. They remind us that our understanding of the past is not a fixed map but a shifting landscape, constantly rewritten as new discoveries emerge. Every culture has its own legends of beings who were larger than life, both in stature and spirit. The Patagonian giants fit into this universal pattern, standing as sentinels of an age when myth and memory were indistinguishable. For modern researchers, the challenge is not merely to find bones or artifacts but to understand why these stories endure. Perhaps the answer lies not in the ground but in ourselves. We are drawn to mysteries that mirror our own longing, to connect with something vast, to believe that the world still holds secrets untouched by time. The giants, real or imagined, represent that yearning. They are reflections of the part of humanity that refuses to accept that all wonders have already been explained. So, when night falls over Patagonia and the cold air hums across its barren plains, it's easy to imagine the shadow of something immense moving beyond the reach of the campfire's glow. Maybe the giants are gone, or maybe they were never meant to be found. Some mysteries, after all, survive precisely because they live best in the space between belief and doubt, where imagination takes over and the story never truly ends.